Okay, welcome to the Crown Council Mentor of the Month. I'm Stuart Anderson. I'm joined by Dr. Kris Heap. And Dr. Kris Heap, I'm going to turn the mic over to him in just a minute. We're going to have a fun interview where we're going to talk about his life and how he is a mentor to so many. But before we do that, I wanted to read a script that was written by a team member of his, as well as by Greg Anderson, when he was presented the best doctor to work for 2 years ago at the Crown Council annual event. Are you ready, Kris? I'm going to read this script.
Yeah, these are always embarrassing to hear.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so his team says of him that he's a man of integrity and lives what he speaks. He strives to find the best in everyone and everything. He equips us to become better individuals, not only in our work and environment, but in our personal lives. He's passionate about life and living it. He has a compassionate heart, which reflects in the charity work that we do. We've traveled to the Dominican Republic to provide dental care for those that are less fortunate. We have financially supported and volunteered at local charities, and each year we designate a family in our practice to bless at Christmas. He creates a happy and fun environment to work in, and we are not just a team, we are a family. 2 years ago, he was searching for a new name for his practice, and he involved us in that process. We all agreed on Inspire Dental. The word inspire alone is powerful, and it resonates everything that he stands for. His inspiration not only permeates through us, it also permeates through his patients, his books that he's written, the web videos that he's created, and also his friends and family. He's the real deal. You get what I see. You get what you see. You get the fun, witty, charismatic personality, and you also get the humble spirit. The best doctor to work for, Dr. Kris Heap. So I went to the Dominican with Dr. Heap just recently, and I love being with him. He was our team leader, and I thought it would be fun and interesting, as well as very beneficial to the Crown Council to listen to his story, some of the things that he can provide to you as a mentor. So Kris, welcome. I'm grateful you joined me.
Thanks. I'm just going to try and live up to the intro. That was phenomenal.
That's what I wanted. Hey, so I want to start off with you telling me a bit about your introduction to dentistry, how it all began in your first years, where it started, and kind of your story in this profession.
Yeah. So I grew up in Arizona, and I always thought that I was going to go to med school, be an orthopedic surgeon. That's what my dad does. And so I always had that dream that we'd practice together. And started college. I was headed along that path, taking all those classes. And then one day, not one day, it was about 2 a.m. I was coming back from a party, and I crossed paths with my dad, and he was on his way to the emergency room. And I thought, I don't know that I really want that lifestyle of having to get up in the middle of the night and take off. And I started kind of flashing back a little bit to times when he and I were on our way to a basketball game or somewhere fun, and his pager would go off, and we'd divert over to the emergency room, and I'd get to hang out in the doctor's lounge while he took care of the emergency. So I started looking at other opportunities in the medical field. And my dad's best friend growing up was Dr. Joe Harris from the Crown Council. And so I'd known him my whole life and his kids. And so I went and talked to Joe and just asked him what he thought about dentistry and if he thought it would be a good fit. And he had so many glowing things to say about dentistry as a profession. He just said, it's the best profession ever. We're coming into this golden age of dentistry. You've got to do it. And he was just so positive. And I just started thinking about other dentists I knew in my life, and it seemed like they always were able to keep a good balance between work and family and time, and didn't have a lot of those things that would pop up where they'd have to kind of leave the family to go take care of some things. And so I thought that kind of fit with some of my goals for life. And so I made the switch, and my dad wasn't super happy about it because I think I destroyed his dream of us practicing together. But later on down the road, he's told me that he thinks it was the best move I ever made. So that's good. We've come to peace with that. So that's how I got into it. I went to the University of Colorado for dental school. I picked the University of Colorado over a couple others because of the cycling in Colorado. I had opportunities to go a couple other places, but at the time I was riding for Arizona State's cycling team, and that was a big passion of mine. And so I figured if I was going to live somewhere for 4 years, I wanted it to be what's kind of the mecca of cycling for the United States. And so I made my dental school decision based on the cycling around the decision. So that's
what a mentor.
probably not the, yeah, here we go. Whatever the first takeaway is from that, I don't know. Maybe we can edit something really wise in there instead of what I said. But had a great time, loved Colorado, made great friends. Came out, was an associate for a year and a half at, probably 6 or 7 different practices, just kind of piecing together a day here, a day there, and trying to find a good fit. And then eventually I bought a really small practice in 2006, and immediately kind of set the goals and jumped into business ownership. I think right away I guess at that point in my life, my vision of what a successful practice was a practice that produced $1 million a year. That was my artificial number of this would mean success in dentistry, so if I could get to that. And so I did all the things that new dentists and new business owners do. And we brought in the consultants and we set the goals and we were training and doing all the extra CE, everything we could do. And we really chased it hard, and we were growing. But for someone ambitious, like the growth is never fast enough, no matter how much it is. And you tend to not appreciate the steps of growing and all that you're learning as you're growing, and you're just kind of chasing and just never feel like it keeps up. And then you obviously, you're comparing yourself to other people in your community or that you see online, and you see their practices and you feel like somehow you're falling behind because you don't have what they have, even though they're 20 years older than you and they've been in the profession longer, and you haven't seen their struggle, what it took for them to get there. You just feel like you should have it now. And I found that I was starting to get signs of just burning out, like really early on. I'd only been out of school probably 6 years, and I was just feeling like I was headed down a path where I wasn't going to be happy in dentistry. And it was self-imposed. It was me, just setting goals and just making the numbers the most important thing, and probably imposing that on my staff a little bit. And it doesn't make you necessarily a great leader if all you can talk about to your staff is numbers and how we can change the bottom line and how we're going to produce more. I mean, if that's the only conversations you're having with them, then they're never going to feel like they matter. And I think that led to me just feeling like something had to change. Like I just had to change the way I thought about success and life and a career. And so I made a kind of a mental shift. I don't know if it was an epiphany or what, but I just made the shift that I wasn't going to worry about the numbers. I wasn't going to worry about the collection goal and the production goal. I was going to some extent throw that out the window. I'd still have the goals, but we weren't going to talk about them as often. And I know probably for our TOPS consultant, that would be blasphemy to say that I've thrown the numbers out, and we still tracked numbers. But I realized that the way that it was going to happen for me was that I was going to have to spend my time just really serving people and caring for my people that worked with me, with my team, and just really caring for the patients individually. And my hope was that if I could just focus on those things, the whole $1 million goal thing would just happen as it was supposed to happen in the time it was supposed to happen, but I wouldn't be feeling the way I had been feeling. And so it really made that switch. And I don't want to say we threw goals out the window, but all of our goals from that point became, how many thank yous can we say today? How many thank you cards can we send out to people? Who could we send flowers to that's had a rough time? Things like that. It was goals that were about building each other up. And we would track how many thank you notes staff members would send to each other. They could put these little like attaboy slips in this box that we would read at our staff meetings. And I would track those. I would track which staff members were thanking other staff members the most and which ones were thanking each other the least. And we had some fun with that. But the idea was to try and just flip this whole thing on its head. And what was funny is we had this January staff meeting a couple of years into that process. And we have my one front desk lady, Liz, she usually does our numbers. And she's like, our yearly total for the year was 1.26 million. And I just remember having this moment where it's like, holy cow, like the $1 million thing was so important to me. And then when I gave it up and completely didn't even focus on it, like we flew right by it and I didn't even know. I was so oblivious to that fact. And we've just never really looked back since. Like that was this awesome turning point in the practice. And so, and I think the other major epiphany that followed on that one for me was that I was kind of tired of trying to make my practice look like anybody else's practice or be built the same way or function the same way as anybody else's. We wanted to do it different. We wanted to make it something that was special to all of us that worked there. And that's when we had the name change to Inspire Dental. And it really fit a lot of things I do in my life and what my staff is all about. And so we just look for ways to inspire people. So the goal is that anybody that comes into our office feels more uplifted than they did before they came in the doors. And so that's kind of what we live by. And that's the name of the practice. And that's just made it so much fun. You know, when I could make the office about us and what we do and who we are, it changed everything for us. And so it's just a super fun thing to be a part of.
Dude, what a good story. I mean, the way you twisted from where you began to how your practice is like really changing lives. What did you attribute that decision? I mean, I know you said burnout, but I mean, where did you get the idea of doing it this way? I mean, are you like, were you following somebody? Was there a mentor that you looked to, or I mean, how did it work?
That's a great question. I don't know, other than at some point along the way, I had become a member of Crown Council. And that's not just like not pandering to my interviewee here, or interviewer, but you know, you just get this rich culture where you can go to these annual events and hear these speakers that are, you know, a lot of the speakers, I've always been really impressed by how many of the speakers they're not teaching us dentistry at all, but they are in a different way. They're teaching us the other parts that we don't know about. And they're teaching us a lot of just life skills and how to be good people. And the speakers they're just excellently selected. So I'd have to say, being in Crown Council and just seeing, being around practices that, where I can see people that were just giving and just doing good things for people all the time, and also had successful practices. I've got to think that was a huge factor. Very cool.
As an outgrowth of that, I know that you practice public speaking and coaching. Which I think is I don't know anyone. There's a few Crown Council doctors who do the same, but not in the way that you do it. So could you talk first about that part of your life, about how you entered the public speaking and kind of coaching arena? And then I'd love to talk about some of your Instagram posts where I see you posting photography and art. So I guess a two-part question. Tell us about your public speaking and coaching, and then kind of transition into some of the photography I've seen.
I think for me, the speaking thing, I think if I were to trace it back, it probably goes, I think I was 13 or 14, and I remember watching the movie Dead Poets Society, which is my favorite movie of all time. And it's probably inappropriate for a 13-year-old, but you know, in the movie, it's an English teacher, and he's teaching these students literature, but like powerful literature. And watching that movie is when I realized I was feeling things. It's like he would read these poems and have these thoughts, and I was feeling something inside. And I thought, wow, like words have power. And I remember feeling about that. I remember having that idea, like, wow, words can affect things. And then that same year, I remember giving like a short sermon in our church, and I taught about, I think it was this about gratitude or something. But I remember afterwards, there was this older gentleman who came up to me and just said, hey, there's so many things that you said that I could use to fix this broken relationship with my daughter. And I'm like a 13, 14-year-old kid. And I just remember thinking, wow, like this 60-year-old man heard something I said and wants to change something in his life. And from that moment, I was just sold. That feeling was just awesome and powerful. And so I was always, from that point on, always very into just quotes. I just collected quotes all the time, and I love teaching. I think probably some of my happiest moments are in life, or when I'm on a stage teaching, and or writing. I have a blog that has been so fun to have. My whole goal with the speaking and the coaching and the writing is just to, in my office, I can affect maybe 20, 30, 40 patients a day. If you can put a blog post out there and enough people see it, you could affect hundreds of thousands of people with words that you say. And that just really is appealing to me. And so I started the blog. The blog got super successful and was fun. I took the blog and then started turning it into books. And so now just about every year I'll print a small mini book that are called, just these little books. And then I hand them out for free around our community. Anywhere I speak, I give out these free books. And so I think up to date, I've given away almost 10,000 of these books just floating out into the world, these books. And whether they end up in trash cans or not, I have no idea. But every once in a while, someone will come up to me on the street or somewhere, and they'll be like, "Oh, I have your little book on happiness. I love that. Can I get 5 more to give to my kids in their stockings at Christmas?" And that's just really cool. That's just really special to me. So I love that. And then through that, usually through like those little books or just interacting with people, they find out that I speak, and maybe they have a need that they feel like I could talk to or something. So it's led into some corporate training, some keynote speeches, but mostly just a lot of free stuff. Pretty much everybody has that thing they would do for free because they love it so much they wouldn't even need to get paid to do it. And for me, that's speaking. It's just an absolute joy for me. So I'm just trying to do as much good as I can in the world and find a way to do it while I'm doing something I love.
Cool. And tell me how that transitions into the photos you take. How did you get into photography?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't remember how I got into it. It was definitely during when I was already a dentist and already had my practice. But I have a good friend that's a wedding photographer, a really, really good one. And I think I saw some stuff he had posted, and I thought I should try it. And I remember doing a family photo shoot for someone, and I hated it. It was taking pictures of people is the worst thing I can ever imagine. I don't know how to pose people. I don't know. I mean, you just have these expectations to meet that it's like when you're doing that, like that cosmetic veneer case, and people know what they want, but they don't tell you what they want. And they have things in their mind, but they never mention it. And no matter how many questions you ask, it's that kind of stress. And it's like doing that for someone's wedding or something. I can't even imagine. So I decided that I would take pictures of things that don't get mad if I mess up. Mm-hmm. And so it's all landscape photography. I love the desert around where I live. And so I like to photograph that. My favorite thing is to do sunrises. And I was listening to Andy Andrews once, and he had the idea that there's more sunsets than there are sunrises. And I thought that's such a strange thing to say, but he's like, everybody sees the sunsets, but not everybody will get up and go experience a sunrise.
Nice.
And so I've had a lot of joy getting up in the morning and starting my day with a sunrise, right? Like a dawn of a new day and like a new day of adventure and excitement. And so being out there to photograph that and then to be able to share it with others is great. And I have a younger sister who's physically handicapped, and she can't go out into nature and find these spots, and she can't experience that. And I know that there's a lot of people like that in the world. And so if I can share what I'm seeing while I'm out there and help other people experience how beautiful the world is, then I feel like I've done some kind of a small service.
Very cool. And this kind of translates into a question that I have, and it's for a lot of mentors that come on the Crown Council podcast, which is a lot of dentists in Crown Council are overachievers. They've got their hands in church, photography, athletics, business building, you name it. It's like they'll never say no. And so tell me how you have found a way to balance all of the different interests and things that you're doing so you can stay happy.
I think you're right. You hit it right on the head. When you get into a group of, especially in a medical profession of some kind, it's the fact to get into dental school, you have to be an overachiever and have to put in all this effort. And then to be successful in dentistry, you got to put in a lot of work. So you get a lot of type A personalities and a lot of people um, who need have, it feels a need for them to be the best at whatever thing they're in. And I tell people my secret is I just want to be like mediocre at as many things as possible. And that probably sounds kind of self-deprecating, but what I don't want to do is like, I don't want at any point in my life to have people say like, oh, that's Kris Heap, the dentist. Like if everybody just says that's Kris Heap, the dentist, then I feel like I've really limited myself to one area when there's so many cool things about the world that you could experience. And so I don't think that everyone needs to be mediocre at everything, but I think we should really take time to experience a lot of things. And you might have those things that you want to be the best at the world at, and that's awesome. I mean, that's phenomenal. But a lot of times there's a cost to that if that's the only focus. And most commonly that cost happens at home, which is really sad. But a lot of people get to a stage where maybe they've reached the top, and then what happens then if you've got nothing else that you've fostered along the way? One of my favorite people to learn from, mentors, he's actually a Franciscan friar. His name's Richard Rohr, and he has this idea that there's 2 stages of life. You spend the first stage building your house, and that's when you're building your career and your family, and you're building this life for yourself. But at some point you have to be able to transition to this other stage. And the other stage 2, is who lives inside that house. And so you can spend your whole life building houses for yourself, and they can get bigger and they can be huge, and get to a point where you realize, I don't know the person that lives inside these houses I built. I've never strengthened that person. I've never developed that person. Yes, on the outside, I've got this great structured life, but I just haven't done anything for me. I think that's when a lot of people come into these midlife crises or have these really hard moments in life, is they wake up and they're like, man, I got everything I wanted and I worked my butt off for it, and yet I feel like I don't have anything. I feel like I'm empty. And so my goal for my life, and this doesn't have to be for anybody but me, but my goal for mine is just to step back and be like, I can be a good dentist, I can be a good dad, and I can be a good photographer and a speaker, and I can try juggling, and I can try all these things and look stupid doing it, but I'm experiencing them. And the other thing that's nice is when you can experience that many things, you can have conversations with just about anybody because you've tried so many different things. It just I think it makes you a good human. And you only get so many years on earth, right? Like what a gift life is. You only get so many years. And do I want to spend all of those on one thing and miss out on the 99.9999% of the rest of life that's out there? Like, no, I would feel like I just failed myself.
That's awesome.
That's probably a super long answer for your question.
Well,
but
it just makes me think, and I'm sitting here thinking about all the things that, I am involved with, and what are they helping me to become, I think that sometimes is, you look back at life or you look back at work and you say, well, what was the point of all this? How did it affect me? And you're right. I think that first part of life is, well, I have to do all of these things. I have to get a job. I have to build all these things. And then you look back and you say, well, who cares? Like, why did it matter? I mean, hopefully everyone that's listening is thinking the same thing. That's why it's fun to have, you on how is what you're saying affecting us or thinking about our own lives. So really good. I loved it. So recently, we watched you and your band at the 25th annual event. If the listeners don't know, we had a concert at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville as the kickoff to the annual event. It was Thursday night, and on the stage, just to name Dolly Parton finished the session for us, but the opening band was Kris Heap and his band of musicians. Tell Tell us about it. What happened in this experience at the 25th annual event?
You know, to say it was a dream come true is like not even it doesn't even fit, because you don't, when you're like a small family bluegrass band from Arizona where nobody cares about bluegrass music, you don't even dream of playing the Ryman, which is, I mean, that's the Carnegie Hall of that type of music. I mean, it's so far-fetched that you wouldn't even dream. There's just no way. There's just no way it could ever happen. Because like, I mean, 3 weeks before that, we played at a trailer park a couple miles from my house. Like it's just ridiculous. But the way that panned out was cool, and there's so many lessons from it. But a year ago, when they had announced that the next annual event, the 25th, would be in Nashville, I had been going enough. The first annual event I went to was in Nashville.
That's right.
And so I assumed there would be a chance that there would be a concert again, possibly at the Ryman. And so I did something I never do, which I never want to inconvenience anybody in life, and that really makes me miss out on a lot of opportunities, because I don't ask for things pretty much ever. But I put some faith out there, and I'm like, I'm just going to email Greg and just say, hey, I know this is crazy, but if there's a show and if you happen to be needing to fill a slot, I've got this band that my family band, we've been playing together for my whole life. We'd pair our own way. We'll fly out there, anything, just to like play one song. And it was like that day, he's like, I'm talking to Steve tomorrow. We'll figure it out. This could be cool. And I got an email the next day. They're like, yeah, we want you.
Yes.
And which is crazy for anyone putting together a concert. I should tell you that you should probably hear the band before you agree to put them on the biggest stage in music. So like completely like, I don't know what the sound version of Sight Unseen, but Sound Unheard. Greg put us on the list, and it just seems so unreal. I told the band, they were freaking out. But that was still like 10 months from when it was going to happen. So every month from then on, I would send Greg an email just saying, say, on that night when we play, I just want to put it out there, like, don't forget us, that we're doing this thing. But I mean, that's an opportunity that could only come from great people. I know that one of I know Greg has told me one of his missions with Crown Council is to just help people's dreams come true. And he did that for us. So the band flew out. I mean, it was phenomenal. We played out front a little bit. That was cool. We started meeting all these friends backstage, which was just awesome. And right after we played, and everybody that was there were so cool to us. We were obviously like the lowest on the totem pole band on there, but they put our name on the poster, which was cool, of all the bands playing. Like, we have this Ryman poster with our name on it under Dolly Parton. But everybody that was in the crowd was just phenomenal and singing along and cheering. And it was magical. It was everything I could have ever hoped. Afterwards, they ushered us in right into Dolly's dressing room, and we got to hang out with her. And she was nicer than you could have ever expected. Like, you always hear the stories of how just genuine she is, and you could feel it when she's on stage, and she could just draw everybody in with just her being. She's nicer than that even. And we got back there, and she'd been signing autographs and taking pictures with a lot of these Ryman VIPs for probably an hour and a half before we got in there. And we got in there, and you'd think we were the first ones that she'd met that day. She gave us all her energy. She gave us all the time. I mentioned my sister's handicapped. She helped my sister get out of her wheelchair so she could be standing up in the picture with her. And my sister was kind of wobbly, so she put her arm around her and just said, hey, darling, we all need a little help getting going. And she was just cool. I mean, she was unbelievable. And then and Colin Ray was the same, Lone Star. They were phenomenal people. And I realized, like, that's why they're at the top of what they do, is because they're not just musicians. I mean, everybody in Nashville in every bar is a musician, and they're all incredible. Yeah. But these ones are at the top because they're genuine people who cared about everybody around him. And when one of them would go out on stage to perform, all the other ones would come into the wings and just be silent and just watch him and take it in. And so I took some lessons from that for my own practice and my own life. You know, there's dentistry is a huge field, and there's great dentists. But the ones that I want to be is the one that can take time and give all my energy to every patient or every person or every young dentist that really I don't benefit at all from helping that person, but I can help lift them. And so that's what I learned from Dolly. It was just give all your energy, right? Give all your time. And I mean, she made an impact on my whole family, and it was cool. That I can't even thank you guys enough for that opportunity. And yeah, it's just, the band is still, can't believe it happened.
Hey, well, I got a band T-shirt out of it, so it was awesome.
You did get a band T-shirt. It has all of our world tour dates and locations on it.
Church stage.
Yeah, we had the church Halloween party, and we had the band shell over on Main Street and University over there.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about your comments is I actually believe that maybe for a time, you know, people that want that goal, you know, of connecting with others, that they do have to maybe consciously think about it for a while. But when you meet a person like Dolly Parton or Garth Brooks, they are not forcing that part of who they are in any way. It is a genuine desire to connect and be with the people around them. And there's no way Dolly was standing back there thinking to herself, oh, here's another, I gotta be good for them. I gotta put on my show face. I mean, that is just who she has become in who she, and I just love that part of being around people like that. It's the best. It's so cool. So cool you had that experience. I didn't get to meet her, so that's rad. Good for you.
The other one that was fun backstage was John Acuff was back there the whole time. And the Acuff family is a huge name in country music. So he and we're both backstage just geeking out together. Like, can you believe we're here? Can you believe we're doing the rhyming? Like we're the biggest nerds, he and I, we just trying to inch our way forward and get closer to the stage and get better views. And nice. We're back there. He's taking pictures of his little award right next to Dolly's little award. And it was awesome. And my only regret from the whole night is I spent probably an hour and a half back there with John, and he's in this public speaking world. He's one of the guys that I wanted to be like always. And I had him right there, and we're talking, and we talked everything. And I was too nervous and too scared to ask him advice about public speaking. And I just felt like, that I shouldn't do that. I felt like I'd be too much of a fanboy or something. And huge missed opportunity. So I did reach out to him by email later, and we connected. Nice. So I've redeemed myself a little bit, but in that moment, I didn't practice what I preach. I let an awesome opportunity go by, and he's another genuine guy who would have spent the whole time giving me pointers on how to be better and how to grow and do what I love. So
very cool.
Some lessons we learn because we do well, and some lessons we learn because we
That's
don't
true.
do so well. We got to repent and figure it out.
Yep. So we went on a humanitarian trip in November together. And part of that humanitarian trip through Crown Council is your participation in Smiles for Life. You guys are a huge participant in every year the charity program. Tell us about Smiles for Life in your office. Tell us about these humanitarian trips that are a part of what you do and a part of your team.
Yeah, we sure love Smiles for Life. And I think if I could pick a top 3 culture building item for our office, it's Smiles for Life, and not just offering whitening to people, but putting up the pictures of the trips we've been on, talking about it with everybody. We're at the point now where all of our patients know that we do that. And the question I hear most in our office is, when's your next trip? When's your next trip? Like they're on board. They're rooting for us to go help these people. That's part of, it's a huge part of who we are. Every day. We're in the middle of doing an office redesign now. And the one thing I told the designer is I'm not taking down all the pictures of our Smiles for Life trips. So we got to find a way to work those into the design, because that's a hugely important thing for our patients and for us. The trips are phenomenal. And if there's offices out there that have been donating to Smiles for Life, and you haven't been on a trip, or you haven't sent someone from your team on a trip, the second you send them, they're lifers. I mean, they are sold on, they want to go back. They want to tell everybody about it. They want to, I mean, they will be your biggest advocates. It's one thing to donate to a charity, but when you go and you're in the charity and you're actually seeing what that is doing and meeting these people that's affecting, it changes you. I mean, you can't go and not be totally changed, and for the better. And every time we go, it's new experiences that I'd never had before. And maybe my other favorite thing, I mean, this is kind of aside from the charity part, but just the people you meet, the other people in the Crown Council that are on these trips, they're just the best people in the world. I mean, the best people you would ever want to be around and work with. And they're from all parts of the country. And so you're learning all this stuff. And then you have this instant group of friends that you've shared this awesome experience with. So you're bonded on a level that's kind of deeper than just someone you might meet elsewhere in society. And then every time you go to an annual event, you run into them, and it's just like hug fest. I mean, you're just hugging people, you're asking about their families and their kids. And it's a phenomenal organization for what it does, and for what it helps people become, and for how it builds the culture. And I love it. I mean, I would retire from dentistry and just work for Esperanza or Smiles for Life. I mean, I just have this great love for it, for what it's done. And I every time we've gone, I try and take one of my kids because I want them to experience just how happy these people are in what we would consider total poverty. Like, we would assume we would all be totally depressed, and you get down there and these kids are just awesome, and they're having fun, and they're smiling and laughing, and they just accept my kids. I mean, just point blank. And some of my favorite moments, just this last trip, my son Evan, he's 9, and he's over on this jungle gym with these 2 other kids while we're eating lunch, and they're just hanging out. They're probably over there like 20 minutes, and my son doesn't speak Spanish, and these guys don't speak English. And he comes back, and I'm like, hey, so what are you guys doing over there? And he's like, oh, they were telling me about how they like to chase these butterflies over in this field. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that makes no sense. It's that kids have this amazing language that's just like fun and play. And, we take these red rubber balls with us. And if you get an American kid and a Dominican kid and you give them a ball, they will invent the craziest games, like the most complicated games, and they don't speak the same language. And there's an amazing lesson to learn there. If they can figure out how to work together and have fun, why can't team members figure out how to work together and have fun, speaking the same language and coming from a similar background? And it's just such a cool lesson to see. And so I always take my kids and my team members that go just come back on fire. It's so fun.
Great point. I mean, it's fun to go, and it's even more fun. I agree. I mean, the people that I have been with, there's just something, you don't get that a lot in life, where you're with a person, even a family. I mean, it's to go and be in those experiences with people. It's just the best, especially for connecting and gathering together. So very cool. So what's next? You got what's coming? What's coming in the world of Kris Heap?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I owe it to myself to spend a little more time developing the public speaking, because I know how happy that makes me when I'm doing it. And I think I've hidden behind not having enough time for too long. And just say, when I have more time, I'll develop that further. And I'm just kind of sick of doing that. It's not that we don't have time, it's we don't make time for what we want to do, because I've got the same amount of time as John Acuff has, and he's doing one thing that I would love to do. And maybe secretly he wants to be a dentist and he hasn't made time for it. I don't know. But I think we hide behind time too much. And I think if we had a video camera that could follow us around all day, and just track the time that we waste on things that are, inconsequential or don't provide any happiness to us or don't move us forward, I think we'd be surprised how much time we actually have. And it doesn't take much. I'm really trying to teach people right now that life's about forward progress, just constant forward progress. And it doesn't have to be, yards at a time. What's the quote? Yard by yard, life is hard, but inch by inch, life's a cinch. And I try and tell people, if there's two things you can do every day that will make you happy and feel confident and successful, it's number one, learn something new. If it's just a fact about whether it's dentistry or history or art or whatever it might be, learn something new every day, and then find somebody that you can serve every day. And I think if you can serve someone every day, and if you can learn something every day, you're always going to feel like you're making progress, and you're always going to feel like you're moving forward. And all of a sudden, one day you look back and you've got these rich relationships with people because you've made it a goal to compliment them and serve them every day. But also you'll realize all these things that you've learned, and you've just improved as life was going on. And so you don't have to sit down and take a master's course in something and try and be the best at it the next day. Just learn something, do something, do anything to move yourself forward every single day.
Nice. That usually encompasses me being on YouTube, searching for how to do something that I don't know how to do.
For sure. Especially like fixing things around my house. If there was no YouTube, I'd be in trouble.
That's perfect. Great advice, Kris. Well, I think this is a good stopping place. And for me to express my gratitude to you as a friend, as also a great example and mentor in Crown Council, especially to the young dentists. Everybody that looks to you and as a leader, especially on those Dominican trips, and as what we would hope as the best doctor to work for as an example to others. So I'm grateful for you and your involvement and engagement in all that we do. So thank you.
I owe so much to you guys. Just the culture you've created in the Crown Council, and just letting me be a part of it, and just the opportunities to meet some of the best people in the world. I mean, it's awesome. You guys have done a great job.
Thanks, Kris. I appreciate you being on. Take care, man.
Yeah. All right. Have a great one.